The stars looked different today. Commander Do-hyun stood on the observation deck of Earth Defense Station Alpha, watching the massive alien ship grow larger in the darkness. 3 days ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Now they were about to meet their new neighbors. The alien vessel was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Its hull shined like silver water, flowing and changing shape as it moved through space. No sharp edges, no visible weapons, no signs of the brutal machinery of war that marked every human ship. It looked more like art than a warship. "Sir, incoming transmission," said Lieutenant Park from the communications station. Her voice was steady, but Do-hyun could hear the tension underneath. Everyone was nervous. First contact with aliens was the kind of thing that happened in movies, not real life. "Put it through," Do-hyun said. The hologram that appeared in the center of the command deck was not what anyone had expected. The alien looked almost human, but wrong in subtle ways. Too tall, too thin, with skin that seemed to glow from within. Its eyes were large and kind, like a teacher looking at young students. "Greetings, people of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Kyo-min of the Galactic Coalition. We have traveled far to welcome you into the greater community of civilized worlds." Do-hyun stepped forward. He had prepared for this moment his entire career. But nothing could really prepare someone for talking to an alien. "Welcome to our system, Ambassador Kyo-min. I am Commander Do-hyun of the Earth Defense Force. We are honored by your visit." Kyo-min smiled, and the expression seemed genuine. "The honor is ours, Commander. Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel remarkably quickly. We have been watching your progress with great interest." "Watching us?" Do-hyun asked. The word sent a chill down his spine. "Do not be alarmed," Kyo-min said quickly. "It is standard procedure. When a species develops the ability to leave their home system, we monitor them to determine when they are ready for contact. You have passed all our tests." "What kind of tests?" "Tests of character, Commander. We have observed how you treat your own kind, how you solve conflicts, how you explore the unknown. Humanity has shown remarkable potential." Do-hyun felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. The alien seemed friendly enough, and the idea that humanity had been judged worthy of contact was flattering. "What happens now?" "Now we invite you to join the Galactic Coalition," Kyo-min said. "A community of 847 species, all working together for peace and prosperity. We would like to meet with your leaders to discuss the integration process." 2 days later, Do-hyun found himself aboard the alien ship, accompanied by Secretary of State Chang and Dr. Wei, Earth's leading xenobiologist. The inside of the alien vessel was even more impressive than the outside. The walls seemed to be made of living light, pulsing gently in colors that had no names. The air smelled like flowers and rain. Kyo-min led them to a vast meeting room where other aliens waited. Some looked almost human, others were completely foreign. A creature that seemed to be made of crystal sat next to something that looked like a giant butterfly. Despite their differences, they all had the same peaceful, patient expression. "These are representatives from some of our member species," Kyo-min explained. "They are here to share their experiences with integration." The crystal being spoke first, its voice sounding like wind chimes. "My people were much like yours when we were contacted. Warlike, divided, suspicious. The coalition showed us a better way." The butterfly creature nodded, its wings shimmering. "Integration brought peace to our world. No more wars, no more hunger, no more fear." Secretary Chang leaned forward. "What exactly does integration involve?" Kyo-min gestured, and a holographic document appeared in the air between them. "The Integration Accords," he said. "A simple agreement that has brought harmony to hundreds of worlds." Do-hyun read through the document, his expression growing darker with each line. The terms seemed reasonable at first. The coalition would provide advanced technology, medical knowledge, and protection from hostile species. In return, Earth would become a member world of the coalition. But the details were troubling. Earth would need to establish a single planetary government, overseen by coalition advisors. All military forces would be reduced to appropriate defensive levels, as determined by coalition standards. All weapons research beyond basic defense would cease immediately. "This says we have to dissolve our nations," Do-hyun said. "Divisions between peoples are the root of conflict," Kyo-min explained. "A unified world is a peaceful world. You will keep your cultures, your languages, your traditions. Only your governments need to change." "And our military?" Secretary Chang asked. "The coalition fleet will protect you from any external threats. You will no longer need large armies or advanced weapons. Think of the resources you could redirect to improving the lives of your people. Dr. Wei had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now she spoke up. What if we refuse? The question seemed to surprise Kyomin. He exchanged glances with the other aliens before answering. Refuse? I do not understand. Why would you refuse peace and prosperity? That's not what I asked, Dr. Wei said. No species has ever refused integration, the crystal being said. Why would they? We offer everything any civilization could want. But what if we did? Do-hyun pressed. Kyomin's smile never wavered, but something changed in his eyes. Such a scenario has never arisen, Commander. We prefer not to discuss theoretical impossibilities. The human delegation was given a day to consider the offer. They were provided with luxurious quarters and shown wonders beyond imagination. The aliens demonstrated their technology, their art, their philosophy. Everything was perfect, peaceful, and beautiful. But Do-hyun could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. He found Dr. Wei in her quarters, staring out at the stars. What do you think? He asked. I think they're hiding something, she said. Did you notice how they avoided answering direct questions? In that document, it's too perfect, too complete. Like they've done this exact same thing hundreds of times before. Maybe they have. Maybe that's good. Dr. Wei turned to face him. Commander, I've been studying their medical data. Every single species they've integrated shows the same neural patterns in their leadership. Patterns that suggest suppressed aggression and reduced independent thinking. Do-hyun felt his blood run cold. Are you saying they're controlling these people? I'm saying we need to be very careful about what we agree to. The next morning, the human delegation returned to the meeting room. Kyomin and his advisors waited with expectant smiles. Have you reached a decision? Kyomin asked. Do-hyun stood up straighter. He thought about his home world, about the billions of people who had chosen him to speak for them. He thought about the wars and conflicts that still plagued humanity, but also about their art, their music, their stubborn refusal to give up in the face of impossible odds. Thank you for your generous offer, he said. We decline. The silence that followed was deafening. Kyomin stared at him as if he had spoken in an alien language. I'm sorry, Kyomin said finally. I must have misunderstood. You decline? That's correct. But why? We offer you everything. Peace, prosperity, knowledge beyond your dreams. Do-hyun met the alien's gaze. Because it's not our choice to make alone. Humanity will decide its own future. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Kyomin made one last attempt. Commander, you don't understand. This isn't really a negotiation. The galaxy has rules. Do-hyun paused at the airlock. So do we, Ambassador. And our first rule is that nobody else gets to decide how we live on our own world. The airlock sealed behind them, and humanity's fate was set in motion. 3 months had passed since humanity said no to the stars. Dr. Sojin stared at the alien medical data scrolling across her screen, her coffee growing cold as the pieces of a terrible puzzle fell into place. The coalition had not left after humanity's refusal. Instead, they had positioned their ships at the edge of the solar system, blocking all routes to the stars. No human vessel could leave without passing through their checkpoint. They called it a protective perimeter and insisted they were there to help Earth reconsider their hasty decision. Still at it? Dr. Park asked, entering the laboratory with fresh coffee. As Sojin's research partner, he had been working just as many sleepless nights trying to understand their alien visitors. Look at this, Sojin said, highlighting a section of brain scans. Every single integrated species shows identical modifications in the same neural pathways. The ones that control independent thinking and aggressive responses. Park leaned over her shoulder to study the data. That could be natural evolution. Maybe peaceful species develop similar brain patterns. That's what I thought too, Sojin said. Until I found this. She pulled up another file. These are brain scans from the same species, but from before integration. Look at the difference. The change was dramatic. The pre-integration scans showed normal variation in neural patterns, the kind you would expect in any healthy population. The post-integration scans were almost identical, as if every individual had been fitted with the same mental template. This is impossible, Park whispered. You can't change an entire species' brain structure without some kind of medical intervention, Sojin finished. The question is, do they know it's happening? Meanwhile, Captain Jinwoo was having his own troubling discoveries in the dark between worlds. His stealth ship, the Shadow Dancer, was humanity's first attempt at building a vessel that could move undetected through space. It was not much bigger than a fighter, cramped and uncomfortable, but it could slip past most sensor systems. His mission was simple: find out what the Coalition was really doing at the edge of human space. The official story was that they were maintaining a protective barrier, keeping Earth safe while humanity considered integration. Jinwoo suspected there was more to it. He found the first monitoring station hidden in the asteroid belt of a nearby star system. From the outside, it looked like a scientific research facility, but Jinwoo's scans revealed weapons powerful enough to crack a planet's crust. "Control, this is Shadow Dancer," he whispered into his comm system. "I'm looking at what they claim is a research station. It's armed with enough firepower to glass a continent." "Are you certain?" came the reply from Earth. Jinwoo double-checked his readings. "Positive. And there are more of them. I count at least 6 similar facilities in surrounding systems." He spent the next week mapping the Coalition's hidden infrastructure. What he found painted a disturbing picture. The aliens had surrounded human space with a network of weapon platforms, all disguised as peaceful research stations. It was not a protective barrier. It was a cage. Back on Earth, Commander Do-hyun was dealing with the diplomatic side of humanity's increasingly difficult situation. Ambassador Kyo-min had requested another meeting, this time bringing what he called enhanced integration incentives. The meeting took place in the same room where humanity had first refused the Coalition's offer. But this time Kyo-min was not alone. He had brought Admiral Vextar, a tall, pale alien whose species served as the Coalition's military commanders. "Commander Do-hyun," Kyo-min said, his smile as warm as ever, "I hope you have had time to reconsider our offer." "Our position hasn't changed," Do-hyun replied. "That is unfortunate," Admiral Vextar said. His voice was cold and precise. "We have been monitoring increased military activity on your world. New ships, new weapons, expansion of your defense forces. This suggests hostile intent. We're not building weapons to attack anyone," Do-hyun said. "We're building them because armed aliens have surrounded our home system." "The Coalition fleet is here for your protection," Kyo-min insisted. "However, we understand your concerns. That is why we have brought new terms." A holographic display showed updated integration accords. The new terms were more generous in some ways. Humanity could keep more of their military, maintain some national governments, and retain more autonomy in their internal affairs. But buried in the fine print were clauses that made Do-hyun's blood run cold. The Coalition would have the right to monitor and guide human development. They would oversee all technological research. Most disturbing of all, they would require all human leaders to undergo enhancement procedures to better interface with Coalition systems. "What kind of enhancement procedures?" Do-hyun asked. "Simple neural modifications," Kyo-min explained. "Nothing invasive. Just small changes to help you think more clearly and make better decisions for your people." Do-hyun thought about Dr. Sojin's research, about the identical brain patterns in every integrated species. "And if we refuse these enhancements?" "Why would you refuse?" Admiral Vextar asked. "They only improve your ability to lead effectively." "That's not an answer." The two aliens exchanged a look. Kyo-min's smile faltered for just a moment before returning. "Commander, I think there may be some misunderstanding about your situation. Let me be clear. The galaxy has certain standards for civilized behavior. Species that cannot meet these standards require guidance or control. There is no difference," Admiral Vextar said flatly. "Order is peace. Compliance is survival." Do-hyun stood up. "Is that a threat?" "It is reality," Vextar replied. "Your species is young and violent. Left to your own devices, you will eventually destroy yourselves or threaten others. We have seen it before." "Actually," Kyo-min said, his diplomatic tone returning, "we have a demonstration prepared. Something to help you understand the benefits of cooperation." The holographic display changed to show a planet orbiting a distant star. It was beautiful, covered in blue oceans and green continents. Cities sparkled like jewels across its surface. "This is Kepler 442b, Kyo-min said, "home to the Rathani species. They were much like humanity when we first contacted them. Warlike, stubborn, convinced they could handle their own affairs." The image changed to show the same planet, but different. The cities were gone, replaced by uniform settlements arranged in perfect geometric patterns. The planet's surface was scarred with massive construction projects. They refused integration for almost a decade, Admiral Vextar continued. They believed they could resist the natural order of galactic civilization. They were wrong. What happened to them? Do-hyun asked, though he dreaded the answer. They learned to cooperate, Kyo-min said. Eventually, after they realized that resistance only brought suffering to their people. You conquered them. We educated them, Vextar corrected. They are much happier now. Peaceful, productive, content. No more wars, no more conflict, no more chaos. Do-hyun stared at the image of the transformed world. And their leaders? Enhanced, of course, Kyo-min said. They understand now that individual will must sometimes be subordinated to the greater good. That night, Do-hyun called an emergency meeting with Earth's leadership. President Kim, General Tae-ho, Dr. Sojin, and Captain Jin-woo gathered in the secure briefing room beneath the Pentagon. They're not here to invite us to join galactic civilization, Do-hyun said. They're here to conquer us with a smile on their face. Dr. Sojin presented her research on the neural modifications. Captain Jin-woo reported on the weapon platforms surrounding human space. General Tae-ho outlined Earth's military capabilities and their chances in a direct confrontation. We can't win a conventional war, the general admitted. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, but we might be able to make them pay a price they're not willing to accept. President Kim was quiet for a long moment. How long do we have? Unknown, Do-hyun said. But I don't think their patience is unlimited. The president stood up and walked to the window, looking up at the stars that no longer seemed friendly. Then we prepare for war. Not the kind of war they expect, but the kind of war we know how to fight. Ma'am? General Tae-ho asked. President Kim turned back to face the room. They want to judge us by their standards of civilization. Let's show them what human civilization really looks like when it's fighting for its survival. The orders went out that night. Across Earth, humanity began to prepare for a war unlike any they had ever fought. But they were not preparing to surrender. And they were not preparing to become another perfectly ordered world in the Coalition's collection. They were preparing to remind the galaxy that some species would rather burn than bow. The Coalition fleet arrived like a storm made of stars. Admiral Tae-ho watched from the bridge of the Earth defense ship Defiant as 200 alien vessels dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Their ships were beautiful and terrible, gleaming in the sunlight like deadly jewelry. All stations report ready, Commander Park announced from the tactical station. Around them 30 human warships held formation, looking pitifully small against the massive alien fleet. Open a channel, Tae-ho ordered. Ambassador Kyo-min's face appeared on the main screen, but the diplomatic smile was gone. Behind him stood Admiral Vextar and others that Tae-ho didn't recognize. Admiral Tae-ho, Kyo-min said. This is your final opportunity to accept integration peacefully. Our answer remains the same, Tae-ho replied. Then you force us to implement corrective measures, Vextar said, stepping forward. By order of the Galactic Coalition Council, this system is now under military authority. You will surrender your vessels and prepare for occupation. Tae-ho looked around the bridge at his crew. They were young, most of them. They had never fought a real war, never faced an enemy that outgunned them so completely, but they were ready to die rather than surrender their freedom. Admiral Vextar, Tae-ho said calmly, you entered our home system with weapons charged and hostile intent. Under human law, that makes you pirates. We deal with pirates accordingly. Vextar's face twisted with anger. You dare compare the Coalition fleet to common criminals? If it looks like a raider and acts like a raider, Tae-ho said, we treat it like a raider. The communication cut off. For a moment, space was silent except for the hum of ship systems and the quiet breathing of the bridge crew. Sir, Lieutenant Young reported from sensors. They're moving into attack formation. All ships, Tae-ho announced on the fleet channel. Remember the plan. We're not trying to win this fight. We're trying to teach them a lesson about the cost of bullying humans. The first Coalition ship to move toward Earth was an elegant cruiser, 3 times the size of any human vessel. It approached slowly, confident in its superior shielding and firepower. It never saw the Luna base cannon until it was too late. The moon's surface split open like a flower, revealing the massive railgun that humanity had spent months building in secret. The tungsten projectile hit the cruiser at 30% of light speed, turning the beautiful alien ship into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma. The Coalition fleet stopped dead. In 800 years of peaceful integration, no species had ever destroyed one of their ships in the opening moments of contact. All human vessels, Tejo announced, execute Crazy Horse Protocol. What followed was unlike any space battle in galactic history. Human ships scattered in all directions, refusing to fight in the organized formations that the Coalition expected. Instead of trying to match firepower with firepower, they used speed and unpredictability. The destroyer Incheon rammed a Coalition battleship at full speed, its captain broadcasting human war songs as his ship tore through the alien vessel's hull. The cruiser Seoul used its nuclear missiles not as weapons but as massive proximity mines, creating fields of radioactive debris that forced Coalition ships to change course. Captain Lee commanded the fighter squadron from the carrier Sejong. Her pilots flew their small ships like guided missiles, targeting the Coalition vessels' sensor arrays and weapon systems. When their ships were too damaged to continue fighting, they rammed them into enemy hulls rather than retreat. The Coalition forces were larger and more powerful, but they fought like they had never faced real resistance. Their tactics assumed that enemies would try to minimize casualties and preserve their forces. They had no answer for humans who treated their own ships as expendable weapons. "This is madness," Admiral Vextar shouted over the communications channel. "You're throwing away your lives for nothing." Captain Jin Woo, now commanding the stealth ship squadron, appeared on Vextar's screens from inside the Coalition flagship's own hangar bay. "Not for nothing," he said, just before his ship's nuclear reactor overloaded. The explosion tore through the Coalition flagship's engineering section. Admiral Vextar barely escaped to another vessel as his command ship listed helplessly in space. But the humans were dying. For every Coalition ship they destroyed, they lost 3 of their own. Admiral Tejo watched his fleet disappear one ship at a time, each loss taking friends and comrades he had known for years. "Sir," Commander Park said quietly, "we're down to 8 ships. Ammunition is at 15%. Tejo nodded. They had always known this would be a suicide mission, but they had accomplished their real goal. They had shown the Coalition that conquering Earth would not be easy or cheap. "All remaining ships," he announced. "Final phase. Target their troop transports." The Coalition had brought dozens of ships filled with soldiers and administrators, ready to begin the occupation of Earth. They had not expected those ships to become primary targets. The human survivors threw themselves at the transports with desperate fury. They used their last missiles, their remaining ammunition, even pieces of their own ships as projectiles. By the time the battle ended, the Coalition had lost 47 vessels, including most of their invasion force. Ambassador Kyo-min appeared on the communications channel one last time. His perfect diplomatic composure was shattered, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "This was unnecessary," he said. "All of this death, all of this destruction. We offered you peace." Admiral Tejo, broadcasting from the bridge of his dying flagship, looked at the alien with contempt. "You offered us slavery with better marketing. There's a difference. You've gained nothing," Kyo-min shouted. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your planet is defenseless, is it?" Tejo asked. The Admiral smiled as warning lights began flashing on Coalition ships throughout the system. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, disguised as space debris and mining stations, hundreds of human weapon platforms came online. Earth had not put all its defenses in the fleet. The Luna base cannon fired again, taking out another Coalition cruiser. Automated missile platforms launched swarms of nuclear weapons. The defense satellites that the Coalition had dismissed as primitive technology suddenly revealed advanced stealth systems and powerful weapons. "How?" Vextar demanded. "Our sensors detected nothing." "You looked for advanced technology," Tejo said. "We gave you primitive weapons with advanced brains. Every piece of space junk in this system could be a mine. Every asteroid could be a gun platform. Every satellite could be a missile launcher." The Coalition fleet began to retreat, pulling back from Earth's orbital defenses. But they left behind a message that chilled the blood of every human who heard it. "This system is now under quarantine," Kyo-min announced. "Any human vessel that attempts to leave Seoul will be destroyed. You have chosen isolation and slow death over cooperation and prosperity." As the alien fleet withdrew to the edge of the system, Admiral Tejo activated a communication system that most of his crew didn't know existed. It was connected to a project so secret that only a handful of people on Earth knew about it. Luna Base Control, this is Admiral Tejo, he said. Operation Dandelion is now authorized. Send word to the colonies. Commander Park looked confused. Sir, what colonies? Tejo smiled as he watched the Coalition fleet settle into a blockade formation. They thought they had trapped humanity in their home system. They had no idea that human colony ships had been leaving Earth for months, using routes and methods that Coalition science couldn't detect. The ones that don't exist yet, Tejo said. But they will. And when they do, our new friends are going to discover what happens when you try to cage a species that was born to explore the stars. The Battle of Sol was over. Humanity had lost most of their fleet and hundreds of brave soldiers. But they had also proven something important. The cost of conquering Earth would be higher than the Coalition had ever imagined, and in the hidden laboratories and secret facilities around the solar system, human scientists were already working on technologies that would turn the tables in ways the aliens couldn't possibly expect. The war was just beginning, and humanity was about to show the galaxy what they did to bullies who thought they could push humans around. 2 years had passed since the Battle of Sol, and Admiral Vextar believed he had won. The Coalition blockade held firm around the human system, their sensor nets detecting every movement in space. Not a single human ship had broken through their defenses. Earth was trapped isolated, slowly dying as their resources ran low. Status report, Vextar demanded from his command ship at the edge of human space. All monitoring stations report normal readings, his aide replied. No human vessels detected on any hyperlane within 50 light-years. The blockade remains effective. Vextar nodded with satisfaction. The humans had fought bravely, he would give them that. But bravery meant nothing against superior technology and overwhelming numbers. Soon, Earth would have no choice but to surrender and accept integration. He was wrong. 300 light-years away, Captain Dong-wook guided his colony ship through dimensions that Coalition science had never discovered. Dr. Mi-young's breakthrough had changed everything. While the aliens watched every known method of faster-than-light travel, humanity had found a completely different way to move between the stars. Dimensional fold holding steady, reported Engineer Nam from the engine room. We'll reach the target system in 6 hours. Dong-wook studied the star charts displayed on his screen. Their destination was Kepler 442, the same system that Ambassador Kyomin had shown them as an example of successful integration. The Coalition believed they had broken the native species and turned them into perfect citizens. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The human ship emerged from its dimensional fold in the shadow of Kepler 442b's largest moon. Immediately, passive sensors began scanning the system, looking for Coalition military assets and monitoring the communications between the planet and orbit. What do you see, Lieutenant Park? Dong-wook asked his intelligence officer. Minimal Coalition presence, Park reported. 3 patrol ships, 1 administrative station. They're not expecting trouble. And the planet? Broadcasting standard Coalition frequencies. Work schedules, production reports, cultural programming, but... Park paused, listening more carefully to the intercepted signals. Sir, I'm picking up something else. Hidden transmissions using an old Rothani encryption method. Dong-wook smiled. Looks like the locals aren't as happy as the Coalition thinks. The mission that followed was delicate and dangerous. Using stealth shuttles, human special forces landed on Kepler 442b under cover of darkness. Their leader was Sergeant Boram, a veteran of Earth's resistance who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignment in human history. The Rothani people looked like humans might if they had evolved underwater. Their skin was pale blue-green, their eyes were large and adapted for low light, and they moved with a fluid grace that came from millions of years in an aquatic environment. But when Boram met with their underground resistance, she saw something familiar in their eyes. The desperate desire for freedom. You are the humans, said Talseth, the leader of the Rothani resistance. We heard rumors that someone had fought the Coalition and survived. We did more than survive, Boram said. We're here to help you fight back. Talseth looked skeptical. Fight back? The Coalition controls everything. Their neural modifications ensure that our leaders cannot even think rebellious thoughts. Their monitoring systems detect any organized resistance. Then we'll teach you to be disorganized, Boram said with a grin. Over the next 3 months, human advisors worked with the Rothani resistance to plan something that had never happened in Coalition history. A successful rebellion against integration. They provided weapons, training, and most importantly, hope. The key was understanding how the coalition maintained control. Their neural modifications were powerful but not permanent. With the right medical treatment, the changes could be reversed. Their monitoring systems were comprehensive but predictable. With guerrilla tactics, small groups could strike and disappear before the authorities could respond. The rebellion began with coordinated attacks on the neural modification centers, human-designed charges, built with materials that coalition sensors couldn't detect, destroyed the facilities that kept the Rothani leadership under control. As the modified Rothani leaders slowly regained their independent thinking, they began to remember what their world had been like before integration. The memories were painful. Their species had been proud, creative, chaotic. Now they were efficient, peaceful, and empty. President Morkay of the Rothani Council was the first leader to have his modifications fully reversed. When he woke up in a resistance medical facility and remembered what the coalition had taken from his people, his rage shook the building. "How many worlds?" he asked Boram. "How many species have they done this to?" 847, Boram replied. But not for much longer. The coalition response was swift and brutal. When their control began to slip on Kepler 442b, they sent in military forces to restore order. But they found an enemy they were not prepared to fight. The Rothani, with human training and weapons, fought like their ancestors had never been allowed to fight. They used their knowledge of their own world's geography, their understanding of coalition tactics, and their burning desire for revenge to turn every city into a battlefield. But the real surprise came when the coalition tried to call for reinforcements. Their communications were jammed by human stealth ships that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Their supply lines were cut by raiders who struck from the darkness between stars. Most shocking of all, similar rebellions began erupting across a dozen other worlds simultaneously. Captain So Young commanded one of the human raider groups, using her stealth ship to coordinate attacks across multiple star systems. Her crew was small but deadly, specialists in the kind of asymmetric warfare that the coalition had never faced. "Strike Team 7, report," she said into her communication system. "Target neutralized," came the reply from a planet 30 light-years away. "Coalition Administrative Center destroyed. Local resistance has taken control of the capital. Strike Team 12, supply convoy intercepted and destroyed. Coalition forces on Vega 3 are now cut off from resupply." The pattern repeated across coalition space. Human forces appeared where they should not exist, struck targets that should have been impossible to reach, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Admiral Vextar watched his empire crumble from his command post at the edge of human space. Reports poured in from across coalition territory. Rebellions, raids, entire worlds declaring independence from the galactic government that had ruled them for centuries. How are they doing this? He demanded of his intelligence officers. "Our blockade is perfect. No human ship has left their system." Intelligence Officer He-Jin smiled from her hidden monitoring post inside a coalition facility. She had been there for 6 months, disguised as a maintenance worker, listening to their communications and feeding information to human strike teams. Maybe, she thought to herself, perfect isn't good enough when you're dealing with humans. The Coalition Council convened an emergency session as their carefully ordered galaxy descended into chaos. Species that had been peaceful and compliant for centuries were suddenly remembering how to fight. Worlds that had never known violence were becoming battlegrounds. Ambassador Kyomin stood before the council, his usual composure completely shattered. "We must respond with overwhelming force," he argued. "Crush these rebellions completely before they spread further." But Councillor Ye-un, one of the coalition's founding members, had been studying the situation more carefully. "Tell me, Ambassador," she said, "how many worlds are currently in rebellion?" 47 confirmed, with reports of unrest on dozens more. "And how did this happen? How did a species trapped in their home system manage to coordinate simultaneous uprisings across half the galaxy?" Kyomin had no answer. The Coalition's entire worldview was based on the assumption that they controlled all advanced technology, all methods of space travel, all means of communication across interstellar distances. They had never considered that their enemies might simply invent better ways to fight than anyone had imagined. Possible. Councillor Ye-un pulled up a holographic display showing the spread of rebellions across coalition space. The pattern was clear to anyone willing to see it. The humans had not been trapped at all. They had been planning, preparing, and spreading across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. "Colleagues," she said to the assembled council, "I believe we have made a fundamental error in our assessment of the human species. We assumed that because we could not detect their expansion, it was not happening." "Impossible," Vextar insisted. "Our sensors are perfect. Our monitoring systems are flawless, are they?" Yeyun asked. "Or have we simply been looking for the wrong things?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time in their history, the Coalition was facing an enemy that fought by different rules, used different tactics, and refused to accept that resistance was futile. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, human ships continued their invisible work, spreading the message of freedom to every corner of the galaxy. The Coalition could be beaten, their control could be broken, and even the most powerful empire in history could fall to people who refused to surrender their right to choose their own destiny. The Coalition Council chamber had never been so quiet. Councillor Yeyun stood before the holographic display showing the galaxy in flames. Red markers indicated worlds in open rebellion. Yellow showed systems with reported unrest. Blue marked the few remaining fully loyal territories. There was far too much red. "In 6 months," Yeyun said to the assembled representatives, "we have lost control of over 200 worlds. Species that have been peaceful for centuries are declaring independence. Our military forces are stretched beyond their limits." Ambassador Kyomin shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "The rebellions can be crushed. We simply need to commit more resources, implement stronger measures." "With what forces?" Yeyun asked. "Every available ship is already deployed. We're fighting brush fires across half the galaxy, and every time we put one out, 3 more start somewhere else." Admiral Vextar stood up, his face twisted with rage. "This is all because of those damned humans. They've poisoned the galaxy with their disease of independence." "Have they?" Yeyun pulled up another display, this one showing brain scans from recently liberated species. "Or have they simply reminded these worlds of what they used to be?" The medical data was damning. Dr. Sojin's research had been shared with rebellion forces across the galaxy, and now the Coalition's neural modifications were being reversed on world after world. As species regained their capacity for independent thought, they remembered what they had lost. "Look at these scans," Yeun continued. "The Rothani, the Vakari, the Zephyrians, before integration they were creative, diverse, unpredictable. After integration they became uniform, compliant, empty. We didn't create peace. We created a galaxy of zombies. Order is peace," Vextar shouted. "Without our guidance, these species will destroy themselves." "Perhaps," Yeun said quietly, "but that's their choice to make." The debate was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Coalition's home system. "Council members," the voice was panicked, "we're detecting massive spatial distortions throughout the galaxy. Something big is coming." Admiral Do-hyun stepped onto the bridge of the FSA Liberator, humanity's first true battleship. Around him, the crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing for the largest space battle in galactic history. The ship itself was a marvel of human engineering, built with technology learned from captured Coalition vessels and improved with uniquely human innovations. "Status report," Do-hyun commanded. "Allied fleet reports ready," replied Captain Jinwoo, now serving as the Admiral's tactical coordinator. 450 ships from 37 liberated worlds. Coalition forces? Concentrated around their capital system. Admiral Vextar has pulled back almost every available ship to protect the homeworld. Do-hyun nodded. The Coalition's response was predictable. When faced with widespread rebellion, they had chosen to protect their center of power rather than their outlying territories. It was a mistake that would cost them everything. "Begin the operation," Do-hyun ordered. Across the galaxy, human dimensional fold technology activated simultaneously. Ships appeared in Coalition space through methods that their sensors still could not detect. But this was not another raid or a small rebellion. This was an invasion. The Coalition capital system had never been attacked in its 1,000-year history. Its defenses were massive and sophisticated, designed to repel any conventional assault. But humanity had learned that conventional was just another word for predictable. The first wave of attackers appeared not in space, but inside the Coalition's own defensive installations. Human commandos, led by veterans like Sergeant Boram, materialized in the heart of weapons platforms and command centers. By the time the coalition realized they were under attack, half their defenses were already compromised. The second wave came from directions that should have been impossible. Human ships emerged from dimensional folds inside asteroid fields, behind the coalition moon bases, even within the orbital shipyards themselves. The aliens had prepared for an attack from space. They had not prepared for an attack from everywhere at once. Admiral Vextar watched in horror as his perfect defenses crumbled. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his tactical officers. "Unknown, sir," came the terrified reply. "They're using some kind of space-folding technology that our sensors can't track." The Coalition's main battle fleet moved to engage the human forces, confident that their superior numbers and firepower would eventually triumph. They were wrong. The humans fought like they had at the Battle of Sol, but now they had allies. Rathani ships used their knowledge of Coalition weaknesses to target critical systems. Vakari fighters employed their species' natural agility to outmaneuver larger vessels. Zephyrian vessels built for speed struck and vanished before return fire could find them. But the real shock came when the Coalition's most powerful dreadnought, the Eternal Order, moved to crush the human flagship. As it prepared to fire its planet-killing weapons, Admiral Do Hyun made a decision that would echo through history. "All ships, clear the target area," he commanded. "Prepare for dimensional ram." The Liberator accelerated directly toward the Coalition dreadnought, its dimensional drive charging to dangerous levels. Vextar, commanding from the Eternal Order, realized what was happening too late. Instead of the collision destroying both ships, the human vessel's dimensional drive created a space-time rupture that transported the entire Coalition battle fleet into the heart of the system's star. 300 ships, including the Coalition's most powerful vessels, vanished in an instant. The battle was over. The Coalition's military power was broken. But Admiral Do Hyun had paid the ultimate price, disappearing along with his ship into the dimensional fold that had saved the galaxy. In the aftermath, Ambassador Kyomin found himself a prisoner aboard a human vessel, his perfect world crumbling around him. Admiral Tejo, now commander of the occupation forces, visited him in his cell. "I don't understand," Kyomin said, his voice hollow. "We offered you everything. Peace, prosperity, order. Why did you choose war?" Tejo sat down across from the former ambassador. "Because you offered us slavery and called it peace. You wanted to change who we were, to make us into something safe and manageable. We wanted to make you better." "No," Tejo said firmly. "You wanted to make us the same. There's a difference." Kyomin looked up at him with desperate eyes. "What happens now?" "Without the Coalition, the galaxy will descend into chaos. Wars, conflicts, suffering? Maybe," Tejo admitted. "But it will be their choice. Every species, every world, every individual will have the right to decide their own path, even if they choose badly. And if they destroy themselves?" Tejo stood up, preparing to leave. "Then they'll do it as free beings, not as puppets dancing to someone else's tune." 1 year later, Dr. Sojin put the finishing touches on her medical research. The neural modification reversal process was now available to every species in the galaxy. Across thousands of worlds, beings were rediscovering their capacity for independent thought, creativity, and yes, conflict. The galaxy was noisier now, more chaotic, more dangerous. Wars broke out between species that had been peaceful for centuries. Some worlds chose isolation, others formed new alliances. The perfect order of the Coalition was gone forever, but something else had replaced it. Choice. The new Galactic Congress met not to impose order, but to facilitate communication between free peoples. Its charter, written primarily by human diplomats, contained one fundamental principle. Every sentient being has the right to determine their own destiny, even if others disagree with their choices. In the archives of the Congress, one phrase became legendary among species learning to embrace their rediscovered freedom. It was found in a message left by Admiral Do Hyun before his final battle. A message that had been broadcast to every liberated world. "They called us that damned human spirit because we refused to surrender our right to be wrong, to be messy, to be free. We wear that label with pride. May every species in this galaxy find the courage to be damned in their own way." The Coalition was gone, but its legacy lived on in the memories of 1,000 worlds that had learned the difference between peace and freedom, and in the stars that humanity had helped liberate New civilizations were being born, chaotic, imperfect, and gloriously, defiantly free. The galaxy would never be the same, and that every free being agreed was exactly as it should be. Some species chose war, others chose peace. Some built great civilizations, others preferred simpler lives. Some reached for the stars, others were content with their own worlds. But they all had something that no force in the universe could take away: the right to choose their own path among the stars, guided only by their own conscience and their own dreams. And whenever young beings asked their elders how this freedom had been won, the answer was always the same. It started with humans who said no, and who taught us all that no was the most important word in any language. That damned human spirit had indeed infected the galaxy, and it was beautiful.